Now we're going to talk about foodie photography. Before we get into more dishes, I think now let's pause on, this food looks so great. Now, how do we take those great, how do we capture those great foodie moments? And you put together a few tips that you'd like to share with everybody.
Yes, I did, you guys. I am really excited about this. I get a lot of questions about how I take and edit my pictures for Instagram and my website and stuff. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it. I made some slides and I'm really pumped. So let's get started on that. So these are some of my best foodie photo tips. And the first thing that I really, really want you guys to understand is that you don't need an expensive camera. You don't need an expensive software. You don't have to buy anything to take drool-worthy food photos. That's something that I've learned. And obviously I've gotten better over time, but I'm going to share with you some of the tips that I've learned as I go on. All of these pictures on this slide were taken with an iPhone. And iPhones have honestly progressed so far. Even your old iPhones can take good ones, but the iPhone camera is great. It's not fun to lug around an expensive camera all the time. So the first little tip that I have for you guys is lighting. And I know this seems obvious, but I have to mention it. Indirect natural light is best. So next to a window, I often go to restaurants and ask to be next to a window, and they're almost always nice about it, especially when I tell them that I'm going to post the food. So go next to a window. Outside during an overcast day is my favorite. Outdoors in the shade. So if there's a covered patio at the restaurant, that's perfect for pictures. And here, this is just a little example. The burger on the left is from Bad Daddy's, and I was not next to a window and there was no good lighting. So I did the best that I could. But then the picture on the right is at Cowfish, and I was sitting outside in their patio. So it was diffused natural light and it came out beautifully. And so same iPhone, different lighting. So that gives you, that's probably the most important thing. If you take nothing else, it's the lighting. You got to get good lighting for a good picture. And next is angles and placement. And this is one of the things that took me a little bit longer to learn. You don't want to be afraid to play with your food. So pick it up, break it, pour the sauce, take a bite. You really want to invite your viewers into the picture, make them experience and taste the food with you. And those pictures usually are the most drool worthy for me. They're the most mouth watering. The ones that get people the most excited is the ones where I'm doing something with the food. So don't be afraid to pick it up. You don't have to just drop it on the table and take a picture. Use your chopsticks and pick up some noodles or break the cookie in half. Definitely works, makes it look a lot tastier. And along with angles and placement, avoid being too linear. And when I say that, I mean, if you have, say, a square plate, okay, like this picture I have here. If you have a square plate and you just plate it right in the middle of the screen, it's so boring. In this first picture of sushi, it was right when I started my page and I was afraid to cut off any food. I had a lot of negative space. I just took a simple picture. But something that you can do to make it fun is just turn the camera for a fun new angle, cut off some corners, cut off some food, use diagonals, use diamonds, use different shapes. So that is a way to kind of up your game a little bit. And editing. So this is one that I get asked about all the time. And the only two apps that I use to edit are Snapseed and Lightroom Mobile. So take a note of those because they are both free and I love them both. Snapseed I mainly use for the brush tool because you can lighten and play with certain areas instead of the whole picture. So I love that in Snapseed. And then there's also a healing button that's technically supposed to be used, I think, to take off like zits off of people, but I use it to take out food that fell on the plate and to make the picture look really messy and stuff, or like fingerprints in my hamburger, things like that. And the main things that I do when I edit, I brighten the pictures, I increase the saturation, but I try really hard to keep it natural and accurate. I crop the pictures and then I increase the clarity and dehaze. And those are all on Lightroom Mobile. You just search through the buttons and you'll find it all. But this is a little example of just a simple edit that I use. This was probably only in Lightroom Mobile. So it shows you what a difference it can make and how much tastier your food looks if you just like up the light a little bit and up the saturation some. And I want to end with one. This is just a bonus tip. And it's something that not a lot of people think about. And it took me a long time to learn it. And it really changed my food game, my food photography game when I learned it. So in Lightroom, the color section has a button that says mix in the top corner, and it lets you edit specific colors. And what you want to do is mute the unappetizing colors. And blue is traditionally unappetizing, and it shows up in a lot of shadows and highlights. So I click blue and I almost all the way mute it unless I have like a blueberry muffin or something. You can see in this picture that there's a lot of blue in the shadows and in the highlights. And when I took it out, it just looks so much more natural. It looks tastier. You focus more on the food. And then you want to increase the saturation of appetizing colors, which is going to be red, yellow, orange. And if you think of most fast food restaurants, there's a reason. You know, McDonald's is the big yellow M with the red. They pick those colors for a reason. It's appetizing. It makes you want to eat that food. So that's my bonus tip. And I see pictures all the time that I'm like, oh, if they had just taken out that blue and upped the orange, you know, it would have looked so much yummier. So that's just a little bonus tip, and it'll take your iPhone food photography game up, I promise you. And I know that it's kind of a fad right now, especially on Instagram, to really mute all yellows out of your pictures. That seems to be what a lot of people do. And I would just encourage you, if you're taking pictures of food, to not fall into that trap, because when you take yellows out of your pictures, it does not look very tasty at all. So those are my big tips, you guys. I hope they help. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I'd love to answer some, but that's what I've got for you.